We begin with someone who yearns for the spotlight, never ending. It has been nearly a decade since Barack Hussein Obama left office, nearly 18 years since he was first elected as president, and yet Barack is still refusing to ride off into the sunset with grace and something called dignity. Nope. Instead, he's now desperate for validation, but his most recent sit-down with failed, soon-to-be out-of-work so-called comedian Stephen Colbert was an important reminder about the constant deception, gaslighting, pious lectures that divided a nation. Take a look.
The White House shouldn't be able to direct the Attorney General to go around prosecuting whoever the president wants to prosecute.
Right, because technically it's under the executive branch.
Technically,
but the norm is that it's independent.
The idea is that the Attorney General is the people's lawyer. It's not the president's consigliere. We can't overcome the politicization of the criminal justice system, the awesome power of the state. You can't have a situation in which whoever's in charge of the government starts using that to go after their political enemies or reward their friends.
We will address that directly in a second. But remember, we're just a bunch of bitter, angry Americans that cling to our God, our guns, our Bibles, our religion. He, of course, was hanging out the Church of GD America with Reverend Wright, palling around with admitted domestic terrorists Bernardine Dohrn, Bill Ayers. Obama wrote the book on weaponization and politicizing justice. Remember his Attorney General, Eric Holder, bragging about being Obama's wingman. And for years, with the help of his wingman, Obama routinely targeted his political enemies. Journalists that ran negative stories, they were wiretapped, classified as traitors. Business leaders with the wrong views, they were targeted. Some were even jailed. The GOP's rising star at the time, Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell, remember, he was utterly destroyed by Jack Smith over a series of cooked-up convictions that were all unanimously overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court. And here's the big one. The 2016 Republican nominee for president, Donald J. Trump, and his campaign, his transition team, and his presidency, remember they were spied on by Obama loyalists that were gaming the FISA court system? But it wasn't just the courts. Remember, it was Obama who weaponized nearly every powerful lever of government against political opponents. And, of course, that includes the IRS. Remember that little scandal? The FBI, even the intel community. And for the record, remember how the Russia collusion hoax began? It began, according to a 2025 report from the Director of National Intelligence, we now know, quote, new evidence uncovers Obama-directed creation of false intelligence reports used to launch years-long coup to undermine President Trump and the American people. Now, remember, Obama personally, they had an intelligence, an ICA report that career senior intel officials, no, Russia did not impact the 2016 election. Well, he didn't like that conclusion. So he had a meeting in December of 2016 in his Oval Office at the time. And guess what? They came up with a new one to fit his narrative to go after Donald Trump. Ultimately, this weaponization of government resulted in 88 cooked-up felony charges against the Democrats' chief political rival and a famous mugshot seen around the world. But Obama is now deeply worried about Republicans because the GOP just doesn't act in good faith, doesn't care about the rule of law. Really? This is the same Barack Obama that set Trump up for a phony hoax? Take a look.
I'm worried about the Republican Party, not just the Democratic Party. When I was president, people would ask me, well, what change would you like to see in Washington? I'd say, I'd love a loyal opposition. I'd love a Republican Party that was conservative in some ways, that didn't agree with me on a whole bunch of stuff, but believed in rule of law and judicial independence and
empirical
evidence and science, and wasn't constantly tapping into our worst impulses.
Talk about worst impulses. You mean Obama, his party that opened the border, 12 plus unvetted illegal immigrants from over 200 countries, known terrorists, murderers, rapists, child molesters, other violent criminals, cartel members, gang members. They eliminated bail, reduced prison sentences for violent offenders. They blocked deportations for even rapists and murderers, wiretapped journalists, tried to throw an opposing presidential candidate in prison for the rest of his life on fake, victimless crimes that no one can even recall without an extensive Google search. And the guy that gave billions to Iran, what did Iran do with that money? Oh, that's right. They built out their nuclear program, their ballistic missile program. They fomented terror around the world. That's the party that cares about the rule of law? You know, high from his ivory tower at one of his multi-million-dollar estates across the country, Obama has not only lost touch with reality, but it appears the former president has lost the ability to even tell a decent lie. But the good news tonight, Obama is now forced to witness his entire legacy go completely down the drain, compliments of the man that he tried to destroy. All right, thanks for watching. Check out my new podcast, Hanging Out with me, Sean Hannity. The big interviews, the debates you won't get anywhere else. Like and subscribe for new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday.